Okay, so we've got some data here on some hay fever tablets, and this is the corresponding data that we've been given. Now we've got the corresponding yes and no's to each of these questions, if they used the tablets or not, the antihistamine tablets, and if the hay fever symptoms cleared or not, corresponds to this row here, and the column obviously for if they use the tablets. And these are all of our totals. Now what we want to know is there any evidence that the hay fever tablets have worked? And the technique we're going to use is the chi-squared test. So first of all, we need to work out some different tables for the chi-squared test. So we've got chi squared equals the sum of I equals 1 to n. And then the formula inside this sum is we want the expected value subtracted from the observed value. So the observed value of all the i's minus the expected value of those i's. Now sometimes this is going to be negative, so what we do is we square that, and then we're guaranteed to get a whole number, and then we divide it by our expected value again, and then we sum them all up, and then when we've summed them all up, that's going to give us our chi-squared test statistic. So we've got these here, which are our observed values, but we don't know what our expected values are. So first of all, we need to work out what that is. So this is our observed. And now we need to work out our expected. So if I draw a corresponding table to match that, so I won't write these bits in here, I'll just copy from what we've got there. So we've got all our yeses and our no's, and our yeses here and our no's here. So for each point in here, what we'll do is for each corresponding one, we'll multiply our column total and our row total and divide by the total altogether. So you can see for this one, so I'm just going to call this A for now. So I write the formula up for A so you can see that. So A will be 37 times 39, and that will be divided by our 65. And that's going to give us our expected value for this one. Then for B, which is this one, we'll have the 39 again, but this time we'll multiply by the 28 and divide by 65. So we've got 28 times 39 divided by 65. Then for C, I write our D in here as well. C is now going to be this one. So that's going to give us 37 times 26. And again, divided by our 65, which is our total. And now the final one, D, that's going to be this one. So now we're going to have 28 times 26. And we're going to divide that by our 65. Okay, now we're going to plug these in the calculator and fit them into this box. Okay, so now we've got all of our expected values for the corresponding boxes. So this is the observed, so that's the data we've been given, and this is statistically what we might have expected from these observations. So now we're ready to plug in to this formula and find out what our chi-squared test statistic actually is. Okay, so now we're ready to do our calculations. So let's pick on this first one here. So observation of this one is 30. So we do 30 minus the corresponding expected value, which is 22.2. And we square that and divide by its corresponding expected value, which is 22.2. And then we do that for all four. So let's pick this one next. So the observation was 9 minus 16.8, square that and divided by its expected. Same again, let's go for this one. So we've got 7 minus 14.8 and then square that, and then we divide by 14.8. That's our expected value. And then the last one, 19 minus 11.2, square that and divide it by 11.2. Okay, so now we can plug all these into the calculator and see what we get. Okay, so our chi-squared test statistic, all of these been calculated using this. You can check these and leave in a comment below if there's any mistakes. I make this to 2 decimal places to be 15.90. So that's our chi-squared test statistic. So now what we need to do is work out what that actually means. Does that mean there's any evidence that the hay fever tablets worked? So I'm going to take this off the board and then we're going to do that little bit of analysis there. Okay, so we've got our test statistic there. So now we need to work out obviously what that means. So first of all, we need to work out our degrees of freedom. Now, as we've got 2 subject matters in here and 2 subject matters in here, we've got our degrees of freedom equals 2 minus 1 times 2 minus 1, which equals 1 times 1. So therefore we've got 1 degree of freedom. So that's important now when we use our critical value. We've got 1 degree of freedom for this data. So now what we need to do is work out what the chi-squared test critical value is. Now if we plug that in to our table, we'll get our critical value. So the critical value, I'll just call that CV, that's going to be 3.841. Okay, so we've got here our chi-squared, let's just write that like this. So our chi-squared equals 15.90, which is much less than our 3.841 critical value. So what does that mean? Well, what it would mean is that we can reject that the rows and the columns are not similar. So therefore what it's saying is that there is definitely evidence that these hay fever tablets worked. So if we plug this into a calculator, we'll get our probability is much less than 0.001. So therefore it's highly likely that these hay fever tablets actually worked. Okay.